I'm standing at the corner of Parramatta Road and the Great North Road in Five Dock. This is about the midpoint of what might be Nick Greiner's WestConnex, a sprawling motorway proposal stretching across half of Sydney. And it's in this section of the road that Premier Barry O'Farrell wants to make a start. Here the motorway would be 6 lanes wide, in a deep trench, flanked by local roads and surrounded by high-rise redevelopment stretching back a block or more. If it were ever built, WestConnex would cost about $15 billion and take more than a decade to complete. In this video series, we're going to show that that would be time and money tragically wasted.
In fact, WestConnex would be a 21st century repeat of the 19th century's greatest infrastructure debacle. Stretching over 200 kilometres from this spot to the Hunter Valley, the Great North Road was Australia's first freeway, and it was a hopeless failure. To grasp the scale of the Great North Road project, you have to drive 60 kilometres north to Wiseman's Ferry. We're here at Devines Hill, just across the Hawkesbury from Wiseman's Ferry, and from here the Great North Road snaked northwards along dry ridge lines all the way up to the Hunter Valley.
The intention was to create a fast direct road to open the Hunter Valley for development. Work started in 1826. Built with convict labour, the road was an engineering triumph, but the 160 kilometre section north from the Hawkesbury River fell into disuse even before it was opened in 1836.
The vision fell victim to a new fossil fuel technology, the steamship. On the Great North Road you would have taken a week to reach the Hunter, but before the road opened to traffic, the first paddle steamers had cut the Sydney-Newcastle trip to less than 12 hours, and they could take you right up the Hunter River as far as Morpeth. The Great North Road was simply the wrong piece of infrastructure in the wrong place at the wrong time. But we're now in the declining phase of the fossil fuel age, and like the Great North Road before it, Greiner's WestConnex has already been overtaken by events. To understand why, let's look at what's actually happening to our transport systems under the impact of the energy crisis. The most fundamental fact to grasp is that Sydney's road traffic, like that of our other major cities, has been virtually flatlining for 9 long years. After interruptions caused by the Depression and World War II, vehicle kilometres travelled per person climbed relentlessly, but the graph starts to level off in the late 70s, takes a hit in the Gulf War, and then starts flattening out. In 2004, when petrol hit 90 cents a litre, and that's 4 years before the GFC, per capita VKT began an historic decline. It's now back to where it was 20 years ago. Let's take a look at the figures for total vehicle kilometres travelled for New South Wales, which is dominated by Sydney. Car travel has scarcely increased since 2004. In the years before, it had gone up by a couple of % every year. In the 9 years since 2004, the total increase has been just 1.3%. In the same period, Sydney's population went up by almost 9%. Kilometres travelled by light commercial vehicles have increased, slightly above the rate of population increase, and so have kilometres travelled by rigid and articulated trucks, but as a percentage of total kilometres travelled, they're almost insignificant. The only thing that's so far stopped traffic from dropping off dramatically is population increase, the mining-led economic boom, unsustainably cheap credit, and most importantly, Sydney's peak period public transport shortage. Flatlining traffic wasn't caused by the global financial crisis. It started 4 years earlier in 2004. Ever since then, the price of petrol has tracked relentlessly upward, way above the rate of inflation. All this is a direct result of the escalating increase in fuel prices since the peak of conventional crude oil production. Production of the vastly more expensive and environmentally destructive unconventional crude is expected to peak around 2016, and it'll be downhill all the way from there. And here's the thing. Assuming the political elite don't come to their senses, and Greiner got a start on WestConnex in 2015, the earliest it would be finished would be 2025, and by then the price of oil and gas will have made private motoring a luxury, and the demand for public transport will have gone through the roof. Here's what happened with rail patronage in our biggest cities between 2004, when petrol hit 90 cents, and 2008, the year of the GFC. Cities like Melbourne, which had old unused capacity, and Perth and Brisbane, where new capacity was added, were able to accommodate rapidly increasing demand, but Sydney lagged behind. Hundreds of thousands of people are driving to work because there's no space on public transport, or there's simply no public transport option at all. Let's bring all this together. On the one hand, we've got the price of energy driving an historic shift away from the private car. On the other, we've got massive unmet demand for public transport. The simple reality is that in this situation, we can rip great chunks of traffic out of our existing road system with projects and policies that are not only far, far cheaper than Greiner and O'Farrell's manic motorway vision, but will actually create a more livable, sustainable Sydney. Thanks for watching. This video is the first in a series on WestConnex. In future instalments, we'll be looking at the proposal's impacts, the politics and personalities behind it, and most importantly, the alternatives. Click the subscribe button and you'll be notified about new EcoTransit videos on your account page when you log in to YouTube.